And so everything's kind of off cycle. That's why we have unripe berries and flowers and
Mm.
also some ripe berries. Typically, they'd come more uniform. It does work well for the video purpose. You can see back here the unripe berries. Like I said, if it's green, don't eat it. These two have red stems. Not all elderberries will have that. Even these red stems, do not eat that. That is not going to be good for your stomach.
Ladies and gentlemen, grab your gloves and get your compost ready. Stepping into the ring is the perennial powerhouse, the sultan of soil, the beast of the beds, where permaculture reigns, food grows wild, community roots run deep, and yes, the garden punts hit hard. Freedom starts in the soil. This is the Guerrilla Gardening Show.
Welcome back to the Guerrilla Gardening Show. I'm Mike with Mike's in the Garden, here with Sam from Central Florida Abundance. Going on, Sam?
What's going on, Mike? What's going on, y'all? I'm taking it easy right now, but earlier this week I was working out, doing some maintenance on this property, and uh, the keystone of this garden that I was working on is a species that I really want to talk about tonight, and that's elderberries. And I don't think we've touched much on elderberries. I don't even remember if we talked about elderberries in our berries episode.
Nope, the
Um,
forgotten berry.
Fun fact, elderberry actually is a berry.
Hey,
So, it's got that going for it. It's also a native species to the eastern U.S. There's a couple other elderberry species around the world, but we do have two, I think, that are native here to South Florida, um, or to Florida and the southeast. But you'll find them all the way up the East Coast. Um, they often grow in ditches or on the sides of ditches. They like having lots of water. Yeah, here we go. They always have a lot to say. Where is it? Where's the Latin? I know it's on here. Sambucus nigra, SSP. That's so, a lot of different species. And that's the black elderberry.
so that's how they flower, these big, beautiful white flowers here.
Yep, they're called umbels.
Okay,
Um, yeah, I got a video and we'll see some in action, but none are going
nice.
to be as pristine as, the University of Florida's pictured specimen. I my uh ADHD whatever won't let me read this whole thing, but what stands out to me is the bottom of that second paragraph where it says a little weedy, and that is so true. Uh, they're great, and they won't just go off anywhere. They can't take over any environment. But if they get into a place they like, they do become weedy, and I'll show a little bit of that in the video too. Um, but really, a great species. I'm sure people have heard or seen elderberry, additives in different health foods and vitamins. Um, Elderberries are extremely nutritious, but if you want to scroll up real quick,
Hmm.
the counterpoint, a lot of our super nutrient dense plants have poisonous elements. Uh, and that's because they don't really want to be eaten, especially not the whole thing, Usually they'll feed you one bit. And then elderberries, I'm sure it says it somewhere in here, but the bits that don't, or at least have very minimal poisons, are the ripe berries, and we'll see some of those dark purple, almost black berries that come after those flowers. They're fine. And then actually the flowers themselves in that picture we saw, they're completely edible. Now the stems behind the flowers, don't eat those. Don't eat the stems. Don't eat any leaves. Don't eat the roots. Don't eat the bark. Pretty much anything that is green. even the unripe berries. You don't really want to mess with those. But I mean, really, that may sound scary, but very rare to ever see people having problems with elderberries. Um,
Is this
think
like
if
where they say apple seeds have, is it cyanide or arsenic? And if you eat too many of them, and then somebody ate a bunch of them and they were completely fine, and it was like, yeah, you would need to eat like hundreds of these like in a serving to get sick. So
no,
no,
it's not
okay.
like that. I mean, if you eat, I mean, if you took a nibble of green material, you'd probably be okay. But I mean, if you ate a handful of leaves or a handful of stems, like green stems that are behind those umbels of flowers, that can be a real danger. People have accidentally done that. And it's, I mean, I'd love does it say anything here really about specific symptoms? Your your
It's
gut is going to be really unhappy.
it's funny. It says a healthy person can consume these foods if they're properly prepared. Still, some are more sensitive to CNG, which is cyanogenic glycosides.
Yeah, and it's the properly prepared. They mean like properly preparing the food.
Yeah,
Uh, and the other thing to remember, it's not this so much, but we did talk, you did bring up like the cyanide in the apple seeds, and like we have that in like cassava root. Cyanide is a very slow acting poison. And so, you know, it builds up in your body over the years. And so a lot of the times, we'll eat those things and we're like, oh, well, I'm fine. But then, 20 years down the road after of eating, raw cassava, you're like, I'm fine. I just can't move my hands anymore. But it's fine. I don't know. This is normal. It just happened. Uh, um, but yeah, the elderberries is more of an immediate. You're probably going to have some vomiting, um, upset stomach, and if you ate enough, it could definitely send you into the hospital. Um, but the berries themselves, you know, you got to be careful when you harvest, but it is worth it. I'll say that.
yeah,
And yeah, there
easily
is a
propagated.
very easily propagated. We'll talk a little bit about that. Um, and it is interesting they're talking about, the cultivation guide because this is actually a farmed crop. There are farms that grow elderberries for commercial uses. Um, Elderberry syrups have become real popular, especially, and then like dehydrated elderberry products. But it's also easy enough for, you know, residential homeowners to get in on this because elderberries really don't take that much space for how much that they produce. Now they can take up a lot of space, but they don't have to.
I did watch a video recently, piggybacking on our recent mulberry episode, and a homesteader, I'm pretty sure, he just had I wouldn't say rows, but he had a whole section for his chickens, and he had two or three mulberries and elderberries in this direction, two or three in this direction, two or three in that direction. So he probably had maybe a dozen between the two species, and he's like, I don't really ever have to feed my chickens.
I bet he doesn't. That's a
Yeah,
great way to do it.
yeah,
And I think also, I guess look into this, but something to think about is I'm pretty sure that the birds aren't affected by these toxins like we are, so it is safe for, your fowl to eat the leaves. Especially mulberries. You should eat those leaves yourself. But I do want to bring up my video
yeah. Let's
real
get it.
quick. This is a lot of, oh, you can't see it yet. There it is. This is a lot of green.
Yeah,
Um, but you can see right here, this is a beautyberry bush. This is the American Beauty Berry, and then there's a slash pine, young slash pine right here. But then all of this green in the back, this is all elderberry, and you can see the white umbels all around here. So I'm just gonna hit play, and we're gonna walk through it. Hopefully it's slow. Yeah, that's pretty slow. And this is a patch that was planted. These are probably 4 years in the ground from
Wow.
maybe 6-inch cuttings.
So how
Uh,
many actual elderberry trees are we looking at here, or bushes, plants?
well, that's an interesting question. The real answer of how many we planted is three.
Okay.
Um, Now we did actually plant about 12 cuttings during this first experiment 4 years ago. And these three are the only ones that took. I think because of a leaky sprinkler, they were getting some extra water.
Okay.
But they are established now, and I'll show later the weediness and how they got like this is that elderberries form suckers and they'll just send up more shoots, not even right off the trunk. They can be several feet away. So
Hmm.
how many are there now? I don't know. At least 10 probably from those original three.
Okay.
But this is a good shot. This was a weird year because of the drought we had early on, followed up by this crazy amount of rain we've been getting. Um, and so everything's kind of off cycle. That's why we have unripe berries and flowers and
Hmm.
also some ripe berries. Typically, they'd come more uniform, but it does work well for the video purpose. So you
Very
can see
well.
the flowers here, and this is one of the edible pieces. The gardener here actually harvests the flowers and the ripe berries to sell, uh, you know, as like a syrup mix. But then they also, use the ripe berries for syrup themselves. And the flowers, I mean, they're really pretty, but they also smell really good and they're great at feeding the pollinators. You
I
always
would
see
think
lots
so,
of,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, working around here is kind of like, you know, you go cut some things and then you let the bees swarm around and then, you go back in once they calm down. Um, because they're not happy when you're taking the flowers away, but sometimes it has to be done. You can see back here the unripe berries, and like I said, if it's green, don't eat it. Um, these two have red stems. Not all elderberries will have that. Um, this is actually like a cultivated variety, and I don't know what it is. And there was some, we got a bunch of cultivated cuttings off Etsy, I think, when we did this, and or the client did, and we just put them in. So,
Okay.
but again, even these red stems, do not eat that. That is not going to be good for your stomach. Really nice flowers again.
Yeah. I'm surprised we don't see any pollinators out there right now.
It's because my face is in it. And I had already been running the weed eater.
Okay.
Uh, Here we go. So here's an umbel, and again, on a better year, we'd have a little more uniform development. Well,
Now, what did the frost do, if anything, to these plants?
really nothing.
Okay.
So that's a good point to bring up. Elderberries are deciduous, and so that's why they can really exist all the way up the East Coast. They don't mind snow. They'll just drop all their leaves. And even here in the South, they go through a period of, pseudo dormancy in the winter. They don't drop all of their leaves unless it's like this year, and then they do. But they really don't grow very much during those winter periods. A lot of the cultivators will just chop the entire plant down to the ground, or just leave, a couple trunks a few inches above the ground and cut that back over the winter, and then it'll regrow. These have not been cut, but this winter there is the plan in place to cut them back. And I mean, really, we just wanted to give them some time to establish, but then time got away from us. But it's always now is always a good time.
Okay.
So I mean, they're a very hardy plant. Like I said, once they get established, it is very hard to kill them. It's hard to kill them unintentionally, and it's not easy to kill them intentionally. So do be cautious of where you plant them, because without a lot of effort, if they are happy, they'll be there for a long time to come. But you can see the ripe berries in here, and this is really the stage where you want to harvest this deep purple, almost black color.
Now they fall right off or they become squishy and turn your hands purple.
A little bit of both.
Okay.
Ideally, on the normal seasons when the whole umbel is, ripe at the same time, you'll just cut that umbel off with the whole berries and then just kind of shake them into a strainer. They're not super soft, so I think if you're careful enough, you can brush the ripe ones off. But they do just detach when they're totally ripe. One of the old Southern recipes is taking the flower umbel here. You take something like this, and then you with the stems still on, put it in like batter, uh, just some flour, and then deep fry it, and then pull the stems off real quick, and then flip it over and make like a funnel cake kind of, just, with the elderberry flowers.
Hmm.
Never had it myself, but I have heard that it is definitely something to try. It's very floral, and you know, anything fried you can't go wrong with.
Usually.
So this one here is a sucker from that one we were just looking at.
Wow.
And you can see I got some work to do in this garden. There's a lot of grass in here, but I mean, we can't even see the trunk of this. And the
Hmm.
trunk of that elderberry we were just looking at is about 6 inches in diameter. And
Okay.
so it's deep in there. So we're probably 4 or 5 feet away from the trunk, and we got a sucker popping up. And it's big enough, it's got berries on it itself.
Yeah, wow. So this thing's probably producing its first year then.
No, it's produced twice already.
Okay. But I mean, if
Yeah,
you stick a cutting in the ground, there's a good chance, I guess depending on the season or when you plant it, that you could get some fruit in the first year.
if if the cutting is from a mature elderberry that's already a fruiting age, then yes, you could definitely get fruit in the first year. I wouldn't recommend it. I would say, your second year is really going to be your fruit year. But, from a cutting, it'll be mature enough as long as it's
Hmm.
healthy enough to fruit right away. And they do fruit, in the summer. And so, rarely ever do we get them in the ground early enough in the spring to, get that fruit the first year. So this is another individual here. And so this kind of shows the growth habit of the elderberries. They grow into a bush, and they do get tall, long branching, but those branches are not necessarily very strong. And so we can see a lot of weeping that's
Hmm.
happening out here. They like to droop over when they get too tall, which can help with harvest. But these are really too tall to be efficiently harvested, just because even with a ladder, you're overextending yourself to get to the top. Um,
That was one
but
thing the homesteader was talking about was this plant. Not only did it provide shelter from predator birds for his chickens, but because of how they weigh and droop, it was much easier for his chickens to, get at the berries.
I could see that. Yeah, and I mean definitely in a centropic system with animals, it's got to be, if you have the water for it on your site, it's got to be a no-brainer plant, really. Um, this is one of those plants we talked, or I've mentioned, this was started from a cutting, probably a 6-inch cutting 4 years ago.
Mm,
And now there's so much material here to make more plants out of.
yeah.
I've seen elderberries grown into living fences. Um, Willows, mulberries are also species you can do that with just because they reproduce so readily from cuttings. And you can, also prune them, like I said, commercially. And, really what this one needs is just to be whacked down to the ground. And any plant that you can whack down to the ground and it just come back up, is going to be really malleable and adaptable. So you can do all sorts of things with these, make a living archway, make a living fenceway, um, you know, just have a great habitat for birds. And we love to bring it back to the birds, and like this is the birds' paradise. There's so
Hmm.
many little. I mean, I didn't cut any of these luckily while I was there, and there was just probably 2 or 3 birds' nests throughout this brush thicket. They got tons of food, habitat protection, and you can see there's lots of broken branches inside there, and that's just, I mean, the way of the road. The birds break it, the wind breaks it, but it doesn't really affect them too much. These elderberries are stressed, I would say, but for other reasons than, these little broken branches. They're in a very rough condition, but they have been making the site better. They've kind of been our pioneer species to, build soil, build habitat, and I'm pointing at these right here because these nodes along the stem, these aren't scars. These were never leaves. These are just extra growth nodes where this plant could form roots or leaves in the future. Um, You'll see this on mulberries and you'll see this on the willows. This is pretty indicative for our species that are going to root easily from cuttings. Like, Mexican sunflower is another one that's going to have these little nodes all along the stem.
So is this something you plant horizontally, or is this like a vertical cutting, or both?
I'd say both. I don't think
Okay.
it really cares, honestly. I think traditionally people will do them vertically, maybe at an angle. I've had the best success uh, doing them in water first. This is actually one that I like to root in water initially and then put it in a pot of soil. Um, Now, if you have thousands, I would just say put it right in the ground. But if you're doing a couple, then let them root in water first, and then put them in a pot to establish and grow some leaves first before you put them in the ground. But with what we have out here, when the time and circumstances are right, there will probably be some just elderberry fences, just not haphazardly, but just put along the edges of the property. Probably when we do our winter prunes, we'll save some material for that.
Okay.
But yeah, I do have. There's so many suckers in this system. They kind of are a weed because there's other plants in here too. And so
Mm.
when, those suckers pop up around, there's blueberries, there's blackberries in here, like right on them. They got to come out. So really, elderberries do get pulled out of here a lot. Um, Also, I want to say this was about halfway through my maintenance day. Yeah, I really just this is some good ripe berries right here.
Mm.
Oh yeah, and now we're gonna look at the seeds. So you can see there, I'm crushing it right here. Uh, and I mean, it's not like it just falls apart. Even the skin stays together. I'm kind of just crushing the seeds out of there. Uh, don't eat too many seeds if you can help it. Try to spit them out. They do also have some more of those toxins, those same toxins in them. Um, and really, I would say don't eat elderberries. And maybe that's the title of the episode. But now I'll go on to explain that really the best thing to do with them is to make juice and syrup because one elderberry has so little of anything in it. You can see here, like
Yeah,
there's nothing.
smaller than a
It
pea.
does, yeah, it doesn't taste like anything because there's just so little of it. But if on these three plants, I could probably pick, I don't know, at least a pound of berries. Uh, and then take those, boil them down, strain out the seeds and the skin, and then you have a really nutrient dense syrup or juice or, however you use that liquid. Um, that's much more enjoyable and has no risk. And so, don't eat elderberries, just drink them.
There you go.
But yeah, you can, take these seeds too and grow some more. I've never done that myself. I'm sure they're not too bad to grow from seed, honestly, as, you know, weedy as a species as they are.
I did read briefly on the Florida University of Florida site there that they aren't true to seed. That's what it said.
Yeah, I mean, that would make sense. These
Yeah.
cultivated varieties, but I mean, wild elderberries are still good.
Mm.
I've never encountered a bad elderberry variety. You see, we got one. This one is popping up. It's like right on our pine tree. It doesn't look too good. So I'm just gonna take it out of the ground. And you can see there's no roots on that because it was actually starting to curve. This, we throw back to episode 50, is a rhizome. And we didn't
Mm.
talk about elderberries then either, but they are also a rhizomatous plant. And so what you could do, I'd be interested to see, maybe we should do some tests. And if anyone out there's tried, let me know. You could probably take a piece of the rhizome, from the bottom of this plant that was already under the ground and just plant it, and it may already have roots on it. The next time I go out there, I may have to go do that. I've never heard of anyone transplanting rhizomes from elderberries, but it's just like your passion flower. You
Hmm.
took a
Yeah, yeah,
rhizome of that.
yeah.
And that would be way easier than cuttings, and it would be true because it would give you the same exact individual. About to start a whole new elderberry nursery industry.
Let's do it.
Uh, but it really is a wonderful plant. You know, Anybody that can get them established on their property, whether you've got irrigation or you've got you don't need water, but the water table has to be not too far down. And my property's not very indicative for the elderberries, but if you can grow them, you definitely should. I think there's a lot of mixed feelings, just because of, you know, the potential toxicity and people get afraid of anything that might hurt them. But I mean, that's just reality, folks. Things
Yeah, it's
are
funny.
not.
I have a trumpet tree, which it's not really doing that well. And then the sable palms, they say, that they're toxic to dogs if they eat the leaves. Well,
Oh yeah.
you know, Sam, I'm going to tell you right now, if you drink bleach, it's going to be toxic. Okay.
Oh,
So
I need to get all the bleach out of my house.
just so you
I had
know,
no idea.
it's like,
Everybody boycott bleach. If
yeah,
you hear
I
it
mean,
here, it's poisonous.
not that I've like tried to feed either of those plants to my dogs, but at the same time, it's like why is a dog you have done something to throw off the dog's nutritional balance if it's trying to eat like a sable palm. I mean,
No
really,
kidding.
that's on you. You know what I mean? But
Well, and yeah, I absolutely agree. Don't let fear guide your decisions, have respect for nature and, nature will provide for you. Don't go in here trying to munch the whole plant like it's made out of chocolate and just take the little bits that it gives you that are good.
excellent. Well, um,
I think that'll about do us for today.
yeah, I don't have the space or need for an elderberry right now, but when we expand and we get some animals, some chickens, definitely going to incorporate some elderberries. So
Maybe I'll bring you a rhizome.
excellent. Love it.
Oh,
What
oh
happened?
no. I I touched my computer and my camera turned off. Oh, there it is.
All right,
I
well, you're
just
back.
all right.
You're back. Now you can tell everyone where they can find you, Sam, if they want to hire your consulting services.
Absolutely. If you want to learn more about growing elderberries in your yard or whatever else you can grow in your yard, check out Central Florida Abundance on Instagram, Facebook, or right here on YouTube. I offer consultation, installation, and maintenance services on regenerative systems. And I'll teach you what that means when I come out to the consultation.
Excellent. And it's worth it. I do it once a year for the last 4 years. I've had this consultation, and the garden's just getting better and better. So appreciate you for that. And if you want to find more of me, I'm at Mike's in the Garden on most platforms, but mostly active here on YouTube. And if you want a gardening shirt to F around and find out, like we're doing with elderberry cuttings, then get yourself a shirt and support the channel here. We would appreciate it. Sam, another great episode. We'll catch you next week.
See y'all next time.